Hello, dear ones. Father Peter John coming to you from All Saints Orthodox Church in Bloomington, Indiana. Christ is in our midst. Have you ever had something bad happen to you or someone you love, someone around you, and you find yourself asking, where is God in the midst of this? What good could possibly come of this? Why was this allowed to happen? Well, that's, one of the questions of the ages, and we've seen different answers to that question in the lives of different saints, in different scriptural stories, and throughout history. Well, today we're talking about St. Theophanes the New Wonderworker. And there are four things I want to tell you about St. Theophanes, and they are the Turks, the Grumblers, the Builder, and the Bear. So I'll go on to explain those four things. First of all, St. Theophanes was a very, very devout Christian, Orthodox Christian monk who lived on Mount Athos. He was so devout that he was made the abbot of his monastery on Mount Athos, and then he received some very bad and troubling news one day. It seems that the Turks had kidnapped his nephew, taken him to Constantinople, and were going to force him to convert to Islam. So St. Theophanes, having received this message from his sister, from his nephew's mother, left the Mount Athos, went to Constantinople, and was able, by some act of God, to retrieve his nephew unharmed. Okay. So his nephew comes back with him to Mount Athos, ends up becoming a monk, and the two of them are living there in his monastery on Mount Athos. But then come the Grumblers. Those who are in the monastery begin to be afraid. They begin to fear that the Turks will come to retaliate against them because Theophanes had rescued his nephew. And so they're grumbling, and there becomes this division. And so St. Theophanes isn't sure what to do, so he just decides that probably the best thing to do in order to save the monastery is for he and his nephew to leave. And so they do, they leave. And they go, and St. Theophanes founds a new monastery, and eventually that one grows, and so he goes and he founds another monastery for the Holy Archangels. And when he's there and they're trying to build the monastery, build it up, they have their architectural plans, and there are builders working. There's this chief builder, though, who he sees the site that St. Theophanes had picked, and he was not happy. He refused to build the monastery on that site. And so St. Theophanes said, listen, we're going to pray, and we're going to take the architectural plans, and we're going to go and we'll put them out somewhere on the ground, off in the distance, and we'll ask God, where does he want us to build the monastery? And so this is what they did. They went out and they took these architectural plans, and they put them out, kind of off somewhere in the distance, and then they all went and they prayed. And then they went looking for the plans. Well, they came to the place where they had put them, and they weren't there. So they all kind of broke up and started walking. And eventually, someone comes to the place where St. Theophanes had originally wanted the monastery to be, and there were the plans lying on the ground. And so they decided that was where God wanted them to build, and so they did. So that was the builder. Now, the last one, this was even more tragic. We hear that there is this hungry bear living near the monastery. And as all the workers are working so hard to build the monastery, this bear comes in and he eats the donkey. The donkey that was carrying the cart, that was pulling the cart, that was carrying the building supplies. And so once again, something bad happened. It seems, of course, nobody wants to lose their donkey, poor donkey. And this bear then eats the donkey. So then what do? Well, St. Theophanes prayed, and he went and he harnessed the bear, and he said, you will pull the cart until the monastery is completed. And you know what happened? That bear pulled that cart until the monastery was completed. So bad things happen in life, and of course this is kind of a lighthearted story. It brings us joy to hear about when bad things turn out good, but even in the midst of all of those things, there was still struggle, there was still pain. I mean, there was a kid that was kidnapped. There was the threat of division and grumbling in the monastery. There was a stubborn builder who refused to do what St. Theophanes had hired him to do. And then there's this bear that ate the donkey. All of these things involve grief. They involve struggle. And yet, God, in the midst of all these things, was faithful. And we might say in the modern sense, God helped St. Theophanes to take these lemons and make lemonade. So when things are going wrong in life or difficult things happen, whatever that might be, right? Remember that when God closes one door, he's going to open another one, that God is there working in the midst of us, in the midst of our life, in the midst of our circumstances, and his desire is for all men to be saved and come to the knowledge of the truth. His desire is for us to know him and to grow in our knowledge of him and to work with us through difficult circumstances to bring about a good and joyful end. Remember, through the cross, joy comes into all the world. Christ is in our midst. He is and ever shall be.